You guys all know that we have the Lift Lab seminars monthly, so thank you for coming to mine today. So as you may have seen or know, it is on the mindset to motivation. So just to start off, a lot of people think that motivation is, the quotes that we see, maybe you can do it, some simple stuff like that, and it's not always that simple. And I think we can all relate to being able to say that previously, maybe currently, there are things that you are struggling with as far as keeping motivation. It can relate to things in your life like finances, relationships, keeping communication. There's lots of things, nutrition habits, lots of areas where motivation can be lacking. So today I wanted to dive in a little bit deeper and kind of get into the reasons why and what exactly motivation comes from and what role it plays. So just to start off, you may know my name, I'm sure you should, is Ashley McDonald. I have graduated from St. Lawrence College. I took the Fitness and Health Promotion program. I also took a year of general arts and science in between. It was not planned, but I started the year with a strike. I graduated in a pandemic, so that was a fun college experience, but you know what? The obstacles and challenges were worth it. Because in between I ended up then being able to focus a little more on psychology, which I really, really enjoyed. Starting with exercise psychology from the fitness program really kind of opened my eyes as to how important it was to understand the mind to body connection. What goes on up here is going to play a big role in what goes on out here and what you do on the outside, what kind of lifestyle you live, what habits you have. So why was this my topic of choice? So for the monthly seminars, for one, this is my first one, and I want to do some practical ones and some more fitness topic ones in the future, but I thought the first one to start off would be good, again, because this is the important stuff that maybe we need to get into first to understand how we can apply ourselves here in the gym and in our lives. So personal struggles that I've had. Again, we've all probably been able to relate to having motivational issues and keeping that willpower to keep going and push forward. So I struggle with that myself, and I think a lot of us can, so that is a big reason why I wanted to talk about this today. I'm really passionate again about psychology and how the mind works. I think that it was important as a trainer to educate myself in this so that I can help guide others in the right direction. Again, so that I'm not just saying like, you can do it, try harder, stuff like that. It's a lot deeper than that. And so, again, it also applies to almost anything in our lives. So as much as today I'm here obviously in the gym and we're relating a little more to fitness, you can kind of keep in the back of your head that a lot of this is going to apply to all the habits and changes that you were trying to make. And last but not least, sustainability. To tie it all in together, it's important that we understand how our mind works so that we can actually keep doing what we're doing and not jump into something and then fall back out, and jump into something and fall back out, whether that be fad diets, whether it be with our mental health, spending and budgets. Again, it applies to everything. So before I start on motivation, I kind of wanted to touch on the exercise psychology portion and why I enjoyed exercise psych in school. So it is to understand and enhance the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and used to improve fitness and health. So it's concerned with the application of psychological principles, so what's going on in our heads, to the promotion and maintenance of physical activity. It also encompasses the psychological and emotional consequences of physical activity. And of course, consequences sounds like a negative thing, which at times it can be. This can be like when people are maybe overdoing it, or again, trying to jump into things and fall back out. There can be the negative consequences to that, as well as just taking time out, being tired. And so this kind of then ties into the principle of individual difference. So what this means is that everybody is different. We all know that and we hear that often, but it is very, very important to understand that everybody has physical and physiological various makeup, and so that everybody's going to need a different training need. So next, I kind of put this little photo here on morphology 101. And so as we can see, there are the different body types here. And so if you're always kind of, like, first of all, it's understanding what your body type is. And if you're always kind of looking at things on maybe Instagram or whatever it is that, like on TV, the media, if you're always looking at a body type that doesn't so much fit yours and that's what you're expecting to see as results, again, this kind of ties into the principle of individual difference. We need to understand ourselves and the way we are made up in order to actually have reasonable outcomes that we want and make reasonable goals. So next is the components of human development. And so this seems like pretty out loud. It would be what makes up how we develop as humans. And it seems like it would be pretty straightforward, which a lot of it is, but there are a lot of factors and umbrellas under that. So just to kind of touch base on the main four, it is the physical development, which is bones, muscles, growth, and then cognitive development, which is neurological pathways and how our brain works. Then we have the motor skills development. This is a combination of the first two. So this is how we are able to take what we learn and apply it physically. And last but not least is the social development. And I just have a little blurb here about what motor learning is. And so again, that's involving the neurological system's ability to send the commands to the muscles. So then we jump into the 5 factors that impact our physical growth. So we just talked about the human development as a whole, and then next it is just the physical aspect of it. So understanding that it doesn't just come from what we do in the gym. It comes from hormones and hereditary for one. That plays a huge role. Nutritional habits, as we know that a lot of time, if you come into the gym and do a really good job, but you're always eating bad, it's not going to give you the results you want. And so environmental and geographical influences play a big role as well. So it kind of ties into as well as the sociocultural factors. This can be everything from like what country you're living in, as well as your resources, what gyms you have available, your economic status. And lastly, it is the physical activity. Of course, this is going to impact our physical growth. So next, I just have what percentage of population that exercises regularly. And does anybody have a guess on that? It's a general, to be honest. I actually didn't even look at what the country was, but US or Canada is usually the studies that I end up finding, so. 60 and 70?
My guess is like 30,
20. So it is 20%, just 20%. And so why? A lot of us could probably answer this for ourselves. It can come from a lack of time, energy, willpower, fatigue, mood. The weather plays a big role. As we know, there's seasonal depression and and so a lot of things play a big role in why only 20%. If you think about it, that's a very small amount. Out of every 10 people, only 2 people are working out regularly. People can have poor physical abilities, so their general health, if they have medical conditions or maybe things that maybe growing up they weren't taught the right skills and stuff. So that kind of ties into the lack of skill and knowledge, or as well as concentration and focus. A lot of us have very tedious jobs, and that kind of, again, they all tie into each other. That can be the lack of willpower and having fatigue set in, because by the end of the day you don't have any concentration and focus. So the lack of resources again and equipment. So even if you're somebody that says, well, I don't want to go to the gym, well then maybe it's doing your workouts at home, but then maybe the excuse is, but I don't have the money or proper equipment. And again, location and finances. The social and environmental influences and distractions as well. So this can be everything that we see in person and the stimulus is going on around us, as well as then online. We know that our phones are a huge role in the way we think and distractions. So whenever we come to the gym, even just realizing that maybe your workout is taking double the time because your rest in between, you're on your phone. And lastly, we have fear of injury, or maybe discouraged, ashamed. A lot of people are nervous or embarrassed to come into the gym. So these are just some. There are, of course, many more reasons, but these are some of the main reasons that again, only 20% of the population is exercising regularly. So now to jump into motivation. So what is motivation? I kind of put up here what it's not to start off with. So do or do not, there is no try. And I have to apologize to the Star Wars fans. It is a Yoda quote. But again, you'll see things like this written all over. People will use it as their Instagram quotes. You'll see it on t-shirts, water bottles, stuff like that. Whatever you do, always give 100%. The rest of that quote is actually unless you're giving blood, so at least I think that one's funny. But again, it's not always possible to give your 100%. And every mountaintop is within reach if you just keep climbing. Again, that's similar to saying, like, just try harder, you can do it. Like, anything is possible. It's just straight fake news. I'm not going to be able to, deadlift 700 pounds tomorrow. So there are some things that we need to realize are not realistic. And so the point of this is not to be, a party pooper here and say that these motivational quotes and videos that we watch are not a good boost sometimes, and that they don't have some good raw information that can help us. But with that being said, it's not something to solely rely on. And Stephen and I were actually talking about it earlier, and he had sent me something a while ago. It was a video, and basically it's like the people that have addictions to these motivational books and quotes and podcasts and videos. There's actually kind of a way of looking at it that the people that are telling you what to do with your life, they're up here, right? And we see that it's like the David Goggins and the Tony Robbins and these people that are telling us all these motivational ways that we can change our lives, but at the same time, it's kind of programmed to keep you stagnant. It's not to set you up for failure, but it's not to set you up for full success. They want you to keep buying their books. They want you to keep tuning into their podcasts and things like that. So we have to realize that there is an addiction to it because it's kind of a temporary high rather than an everlasting, something that we can sustain. And again, not to be the party pooper here, I'm guilty of it. I use lots of quotes. I used to actually checkerboard my Instagram with a bunch of quotes, and I realized that that's not my total morals. I think that it's more applying myself and putting that time, instead of writing somebody's unoriginal quote, maybe making a video and showing people like a visualization of, how good it feels to get out and actually motivate yourself rather than just these books and such. And so motivation is the internal and external factors that energize and direct behavior towards a goal. I found that in some college notes. Can't tell you exactly where it's sourced from. I believe it's just the regular definition of motivation. So there are two types of motivation. So intrinsic and extrinsic. So intrinsic is performing a task because it is rewarding to you. So it's sourced by internal rewards and reinforcers. This can be anything like joy, relief, achievement, sense of competence, reassurance. Extrinsic is performing a task to avoid punishment or negative consequences. So it's sourced by external rewards and reinforcers. Money, awards, praise, recognition, benefits can also come through things like jealousy or wanting to be better than other people. It's not necessarily something that you're doing because you enjoy it or want to do it for yourself. So where does fitness fall? So sports participation has been shown to be more likely motivated by intrinsic motivators, such as fun and enjoyment. That's because when people go out, they have a social aspect, they're liking what they're doing, they're having fun most of the time. And general exercise is often linked to extrinsic motivators, such as weight loss, appearance, and stress management. Extrinsic doesn't always have to be a negative thing. It's just to know how to balance out that, yes, it is important to keep on top of our weight and, want to look good and feel good and keep our stress down, but at the same time, not having it come in with an overwhelming, like, we're only doing this because, again, those external factors, not because we want to for ourselves. And exercise can also fall under intrinsic motivation. So if you're somebody that genuinely likes it, I think, honestly, Brenda, you're a good example, Bella, a lot of people come into the gym and they really enjoy what they're doing. They're posting about what they're doing. They like to keep that accountability up. That would be coming from an intrinsic motivation. And so the differences lead to the different rates of adherence. And so what this means, exercise adherence, is the extent to which somebody is sticking to their plan, whether it's something that they've come up with themselves or if it is something that their trainer or coach has given them. So the conditions that influence exercise adherence would be your personal factors, Your program factors, which can be, if you're not getting enough variety, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, if you don't feel like you're succeeding at what you're doing, and again, the environmental factors. And so an individual needs favorable conditions in order to thrive. So the factors that are proven to enable this adherence to regular exercise, it's an established daily structure that incorporates exercise. And by an established daily structure, that doesn't necessarily mean exercising every day. It just means that you know what you're doing on your off days and you're paying attention to your recovery and your rest and how you're eating. The next is anticipated positive feelings associated with exercise. So again, trying to bring out that intrinsic motivation with exercise. It can be difficult, but trying not to look at it as, well, I just want to look like her, or, we want to have it that we actually come in here and realize how good we feel when we leave. The accountability falls under psychosocial, and lastly is self-efficacy. So self-efficacy means one belief in their own ability to succeed. So obviously we want to be good at what we're doing, and it's not fun to fail. So this is again the factors that are proven to enable the adherence to exercise. So the next one, I have the self-determination theory. And so basically what this means is how to keep self-determined, as well as it is the human's 3 basic needs. So autonomy is the first one, and this is being able to feel like you have freedom over your own choices. You want to be able to control what you do. You don't want somebody else always telling you what to do, and that's not to say that you don't have a coach helping you, but it's going to a coach and saying, I want this. And so they're kind of listening to you and, gearing it towards you making your own choices. So this is AKA self-determination, the title of the theory. The next one is competence. And so this is feeling effective and capable, again, wanting to be good at things. It feels good whenever we're successful and efficient. So this is AKA mastery. And then the last one is relatedness. So the last basic human need is feeling a social connection. We want to feel like we're a part of something. We want to feel like the connections we have with people are meaningful, and with that we have a purpose with what we're doing. So this is the social interaction portion. So these are the 3 innate psychological needs which must be satisfied in order to have a person continuing with their willpower and to push forward with doing stuff. So next is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So what this is the pyramid on what is going to motivate people. So the 5 deep-rooted reasons that people are motivated. The bottom is actually the most important, being that it's the base. So it starts with physiological needs. So this is going to be anything from air, water, food, shelter, clothing. Of course, we need a roof over our head, things like that. That moves up then into the safety. So then it's the personal security and the employment and finances to keep those physiological needs sustained. Next up is love and belonging. So that kind of falls into, with the last slide, we have the relatedness. So with love and belonging, we want to, again, feel that we're recognized. We want to have good self-esteem. That goes into the esteem one itself, with having respect for ourselves and others respect us, our status, recognition, freedom. And last but not least, the top one, and again, the bottom being most important doesn't necessarily mean the top isn't. It just means that we absolutely need to fulfill those bottom portions in order to get to the top. And so the top is self-actualization. And what this means is the desire to become the best that you can be. And I mean, that's a quote in itself, like become the best version of yourself. But I really do believe in that one. We can constantly be working on ourselves and be the best version of ourselves. So that is the self-actualization. And again, just to reiterate that this is what motivates people. So Singer's 5-step method is a good tool that you can use, a strategy shown to enhance the learning and self-paced motor tasks. And if you remember, the motor tasks are just taking what we learn. So maybe you're reading things and watching videos about exercise and being able to go and then apply it. So in order, it starts with readying. So having the proper equipment, warm up. This can come with a learner, like a client, as well as then coming from the trainer. So it's a teaching as well as learning 5-step method. So making sure that the learner or athlete feels ready. The next one is imaging. So this one is, again, like visualizations. We want to make sure that we're not just going into something raw. Honestly, just looking at a Google image, and I mean, I still do it. It's not a bad thing to jump in and watch videos and look at images, as well as watching your coach. You know, if you have a personal trainer, viewing the way the demonstrations they're doing so that you can visualize how to execute it yourself. The next one is focusing. So an example of this is blocking out the internal and external distractions, or zeroing in. And obviously this is easier said than done, but coming into the gym, or you know, if you're trying to apply yourself with a real learning a motor skill, if you're really trying to apply yourself with it, you really need to focus on focusing. Zeroing in and getting out all the external factors, whether it be work, things that are going on in your relationships, kids, money. Those are the kind of things that, as much as they play a big role in how we feel, whenever you want to learn something, you need to be able to focus on what you're doing and concentrate. And that then goes into the execution part. So executing is attempting the desired skill after completing these first 3 steps above. And last but not least is the evaluating. So both the learner and the coach. So if you have somebody, again, if it's, even if you're getting, say, counseling for something, or if you have somebody at work that is monitoring what you're doing, having somebody, as well as yourself, assess and analyze the areas that you did right, what was correct and what was done wrong, what you can improve. This is an important last step of this 5-step method in order to learn different strategies and motor skills. So I then tie this into the strategies for maintaining interest. So here in the purple boxes are basically the key bold point. And so having a group or partner, this has been proven in many studies to keep people much more accountable. If you have somebody that you enjoy exercising with or keeping physical activity with, as well as, again, other goals and things that we're doing in life, having somebody that you can rely on and do it with is a really good way to keep interest, as well as emphasizing variety, emphasizing technique and form, and emphasizing your goals. So emphasize, it's an important way to keep interest in what you're doing. Minimize injury. So moderate intensity doesn't mean you always have to be doing moderate. You know, you could be doing light or extreme high intensity, but just making sure that you're having appropriate progressions. And setting reasonable goals and expecting realistic outcomes. So I'll talk a little bit later about the SMART goals. Most people have probably heard a little bit about this. It's in a lot of college programs, a lot of jobs. And next is recruiting. So that's kind of, again, tying with the group or partner. Recruiting support and accountability from those close to you. This can be just even posting on your socials. Asking somebody if it's okay to check in with them every day about your exercise and how it went. If you just ask, you know, is it okay if I send you a message and let you know how my fitness routine went this week? Like, most people are going to say, yeah, that's fine. And it's a really good way to keep accountable. And so creating and utilizing progress tracking tools. This is a really good one. A lot of people have different methods of these tools and different things that they use, but finding what works for you. Another one is the SWOT analysis, and I kind of talk a little bit about that later as well. And then we have preparing for unexpected disruptions and distractions. So this can be travel, family, commitments, work, health. Lots of things can come up that we need to prepare for. And so being able to maintain that interest is going to come from knowing that things are going to come up unexpectedly, and being ready for it and having a plan is a really good way to stick to the regimen and routine. And last but not least is complement. So complement the exercise with other health promotion activities. So nutrition education, as a few of you here were at Bree's last seminar, for instance, stress management, mindfulness tools. There's lots of other health promotion activities out there that you can be doing and pairing up with to keep you on top of it. Okay. So next is the beneficial tools to implement. So again, most people have heard of a SMART goal. The SMART just stands for specific, measurable, attainable, reward, and time-based. So specific, you know, a lot of people come in and say, I want to get fit. We need a little bit more than that. So having something just a little bit more detailed, which then I kind of think that filling in the specific is actually something I like to do last. So if you go with what's measurable, so maybe over a few months you'd like to lose this much weight, that's already more specific than saying I want to get fit. Being attainable, so it has to be something that you can do and sustain. If you come in and say, my goal is to work out 7 days a week, I'm going to look at you and say, it's probably not, power to you if you can do it. And a lot of people do. It's just to say that, it's not maybe the first step that you should start with. And so reward. This doesn't mean going out and having a pizza or Blizzard every single time that you come to the gym. It just means that, again, even the reward is walking out. A lot of people feel that, the runner's high or the working out high, that you have all the endorphins and serotonin, everything's releasing in your body, making you feel good. And that's not just a temporary high then, like those motivational videos and quotes. And so time-based, this also ties back into with measurable, having it that you want to lose a certain amount of weight over a certain amount of time is much better than coming in and saying, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, how quickly? What's your goal? Do you have a wedding coming up? Like, making this SMART goal is a really good way rather than just having a very vague, broad goal. And so the next one is the SWOT analysis. This is actually used a lot in workplaces, but it's a really good way of analyzing almost, again, anything you're doing. So pretty simple. The S stands for strengths, so everything you're doing right. The W is weaknesses, the areas that you can enhance. And the O is opportunities, so reasons and ways that you will be likely to prosper. Last is threats, and this again would just be tied back into things like distractions, maybe getting sick, stuff like that. So this is a really good way of analyzing. You can literally write down SWOT and, how was my workout this week? Analyze what you did well, look at your opportunities, see what next week, maybe this week I noticed that I had extra work that was coming into play, so now next week you know that that's one of your threats, and so forth. And last, I just put an other column, and this is just some extra tools. There's exercising tracking tools, nutrition tools like MyFitnessPal. There are mindfulness tools out there. A lot of things can come all the way from free, all the way up to, I got this for Christmas, a Fitbit. There are really good tracking tools out there like that. There are self-care management, such as like reading, even meditating, taking walks and hikes, and actually doing that with consciousness. So not just saying like, well, I walked to the bus stop today, but did you purposely go out and say like, I'm going to take a walk, and also self-contracts. It sounds silly, but having something like even posting it on your fridge, having like a bulletin board and having something that you wrote out for yourself. And that could even be your SMART goal, saying that you're sticking to your SMART goal. And Lift Lab seminars, of course, that's a good tool to use. And so the trans-theoretical model is basically just a fancy way of saying the stages of change or behavior. So it goes through starting with pre-contemplation all the way down to maintenance. And so as you can see, when you're making your way through, this is the progress. And all these arrows look a little bit confusing, but what it means is just you can go from pre-contemplation to contemplation and go right back out and need to restart. As well as then you can make your way to maintenance and have a relapse and go right to the beginning. So this is a really good tool. Like I've mentioned over and over, it's a really good tool to utilize for basically anything that you're doing. And so just to kind of give a little bit of detail for each one, just a quick blurb. So for the pre-contemplation, it is not considering change within the next 6 months. So the awareness may be incomplete for people when they're in their pre-contemplation stage. They're maybe not even thinking about the habits that they want to change. There's kind of 4 R's that tie in with that one, and it's rationalization, which is like making excuses, reluctancy, rebellion, and resignation. So these all kind of play a part in like quitting early retirement, just coming up with excuses, and basically the pros outweigh the cons. And so the of not exercising, I should say, the pros outweigh the cons of not exercising. That's the way this person would view it. And so then in the contemplation stage is whenever the person is getting ready. So they are seriously considering change within the next 6 months. They're aware, they recognize that they need to change and that they're lacking motivation, but their confidence is still likely fairly low in the contemplation stage. They then get into the preparation stage. This is being unsuccessful in the past 12 months, but intending to take action within the next 30 days. So they're feeling ready, their determination has increased, they're planning the steps and small changes, and sometimes in the preparation stage, there's already slightly modification of their behavior in the direction of their goal or change that they want to make. And so the preparation is basically a combination of your intention versus your behaviors. The action stage is actively modifying your behavior. So this is the positive change has happened within the last 6 months. So you're very high risk for relapse in this stage. So being aware that once you've made the action and you got there, you're doing it, it's a very, again, high risk for being able to move backwards. And you don't always have to go right back to the beginning, but sometimes you move back to preparation, say, or back to contemplation. And so being that this one's very challenging, a lot of people need support and useful tools to include. And with the maintenance stage, it is then having the changes last or sustained over 6 months. So this is replacing the old habits with new ones, and basically the habits and changes are engraved. And so preventing the relapse is a very important part in the maintenance stage, and oftentimes there are lots of learned strategies and coping mechanisms on how to deal with these lapses. Confidence is usually also pretty high in the last maintenance stage, so not needing as much support. And I mean, we all need support. It's not to say you don't need any, but usually in the maintenance stage, you kind of have it figured out a little more yourself. So here we have exercise math. So basically, you are 20% more effective whenever you keep up with regular exercise. So in the long run, you actually save time. People think they don't have time to exercise, but simply put, you do, because you are then more productive in your life. And so there's actually a study that showed that physical activity not only improves the overall well-being of the participants that had exercised the day of going to work, but they were also actually 72% more, like they had an improvement of 72% in their time management and the workload that was completed. So between 20% more effective in general up to, and this is one study, but that still showed that on a regular work day, the 72% of them did so much better during their day. So why would you say that exercise you don't have time for? We do. Okay, so I'm going to give out a really quick, this will only take about 3 minutes. I'll take this off quick so I don't pull it. So this is just kind of the last little portion, an interactive portion, and it's just a little self-quiz. You can keep it for yourself. You can make little notes on it. And just bear with me. I'm going to read it out loud just so that looking back for anybody online and stuff, they can hear the questions. So we got the pen, piece of paper. So what this quiz is going to do is help you determine what prevents you from being active. So it's a barriers to being active questionnaire. So you're going to read each statement, I'm going to read them out loud as well, and indicate how likely you are to say each of them. So you can see here at the side I have very likely being a score of 3 all the way to very unlikely being a score of 0. So you can, again, go ahead and fill them out through. I'm going to read them out. I'll kind of take my time, but it should only take about 3 minutes. So the first one is, my day is so busy now, I just don't think I can make the time to include physical activity in my regular schedule. And again, just noting how likely you'd be to say each one.
So I'm doing that on this page, the blank page?
Yeah, so 1 through 21, you're going to fill out your score. Number 2, none of my family members or friends like to do anything active, so I don't have a chance to be physically active myself. Number 3, I'm just too tired after school or work to be active. Number 4, I've been thinking about becoming more physically active, but I just can't seem to get started. Number 5, participating in physical activities can be risky. CrossFit, yeah. Number 6, I don't get enough exercise because I have never learned the skills for any one sport or hobby in the gym and such. Number 7, I don't have access to jogging trails, swimming pools, bike paths, gyms, etc. Number 8, physical activity takes too much time away from other commitments like work, family, etc. Number 9, I'm embarrassed about how I will look when I participate in physical activities with others. Number 10, I don't get enough sleep as it is. I just couldn't get up early or stay up later to be physically active. 11, it's easier for me to find excuses not to be physically active than to go out and do something. 12, I know of too many people who have hurt themselves by overdoing their physical activity. CrossFit again. 13, I really can't see learning a new sport or skill. 14 is it's just too expensive. You have to take a class or join a club or buy the right equipment. 15, my free times during the day are too short to include physical activity. 16, my usual social activities with family or friends do not include physical activity. 17, I'm too tired during the week and I need the weekend to catch up on my rest. Just a few more. 18 is I want to be more physically active, but I just can't seem to stick to anything. That's a pretty common one. 19 is I'm afraid I might injure myself. 20 is I'm not good enough at any physical activity to make it fun. And the very last one, if we had exercise facilities and showers at work or school, then I would be more likely to be physically active. All right. So again, thank you for bearing with me that I could read those out for the people that might view this video later. So what we're going to do is flip over your card now, and you'll see on the back I kind of like did the little math for you. So it looks confusing, but really it just goes from 1 all the way down to 7, 8 all the way down to 14. What you're going to do is fill in your number. This is something, you don't have to do it right now. You can do it at home if you want. And beside each 1 through 7, is going to show you what your barrier is then. So anything that's over 5 is considered a significant area that you should be focusing on working on. So this was just, again, a fun little way to kind of quiz yourself and figure out what your barriers are. And with that, hopefully understanding where your motivation kind of comes from and how to actually apply these barriers and push past them. And again, if you'd like to note, once you kind of fill out the math, if you'd like to note which each of them are, so there's lack of time, social influence, lack of energy, lack of willpower, fear of injury, lack of skill, and lack of resources.
So you said a score of 5 or above in every category shows that you this is an important area. What if you did
9?
anything for 2s or 3s? Or?
Yeah, so if you're sitting below 5, basically you can kind of still put them in order. Like if you have 0s, then you know that that's clearly not an area that is a barrier for you. If you're sitting at 5 or above, it's something you should maybe focus on. So for me, it's usually like lack of energy, sometimes lack of time. That's usually what mine spits out. So with those ones, if they're around a 4 or 5, it's the area I can work on, and then you can kind of trickle down and see like a pyramid style what areas you need to be working on. And again, I can go back to this just at the end. You can even take a picture if you want, so you can kind of have the things next to each one. And with that, thank you again all for coming. I put a last little quote here, and the only time you should ever be looking back is to admire that booty. So thank you all. Thank you. So is there any questions? I guess I should leave this on for a moment here. No questions?
You mentioned some case about motivation, right?
Pardon me?
You mentioned everything about motivation, but you didn't mention something which is, I think, is important.
What's that?
Some chronic conditions.
Chronic conditions? Yeah, it's a good point. And I mean, that kind of ties into, like I slightly mentioned, the medical aspects and stuff. But yeah, you're totally right that if you have chronic conditions and health going on, then that can play a huge part. You know, it's why they say another good quote that isn't wrong is not to judge the person next to you, because you know, they could look and appear totally healthy, but maybe they have like a really serious chronic condition going on. And that can be mentally as well, mentally and physically. And that can play a huge role in motivation. Yeah, good point. Thank you, Athir.
Yeah, I think that ties into Maslow's hierarchy of needs a little bit, right? Because if you have some debilitating disease that's preventing you from like doing any of the stuff up the pyramid, because maybe you're like not, I don't know, you're deficient in nutrients because you're not digesting things correctly, or maybe you can't get around easily because you have problems with your hips or knees, or you can't walk or whatever. Then like that's gonna make everything else higher up the pyramid much harder to do.
Yeah, and that's where then it's hard to get that top one of self-actualization, of being the best version you can be, if you're seeing all these barriers that are, you know, pretty difficult to overcome. Anything else? Any other questions or comments?
I had a few things I wanted to, like kind of emphasize that I thought stuck out to me. So yeah, you mentioned adherence, and then in adherence you talked about having a daily structure. And that one really stands out to me, because like I remember when the pandemic first hit, and all of a sudden I had all this time off. And I made a plan to like, where I was like, I can work. I had equipment at home, so I was going to work out all the time. But I found, because like everything else in my life was kind of thrown off, even though I had all this time, it was much harder to actually like get motivated and stick to a plan, because like, you know, I was like waking up at like 3 p.m. because there was no reason to wake up anymore, and I was like, you know, everything's thrown off. But you know, eventually though, I did like I made a really solid plan. It was like, okay, it's like, you know, Monday was leg day or something. I had to do it. And it was like so you make a plan that you are accountable to.
And preparing. Preparing for those distractions or setbacks.
That's a good point. Yeah, and so example, for if you're preparing for a workout, then you maybe in the morning, then you know the night before you gotta sleep at a reasonable time, not be an idiot.
Shouldn't be going out drinking and partying. Yeah.
Right. So that one stood out to me. Again, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think that's a good one, because it's also kind of ties into some really solid philosophy in general. In that, like I was mentioning, like what use to you is like something like self-actualization, status recognition, all these kind of higher things. If you don't have food and shelter, if you're starving in like Brazil in some favela, like these things are pointless to you. Like, or like, you know, someone coming up to you and saying, you know, well, why haven't you reached your fitness goals? Well, I can't eat. Like, what are you talking about?
And that's that socio-economic influences, that a really big part, where you are, the money, what country and resources you have.
Right. So, I mean, to my mind, that just says we need to build societies where all these things are taken care of, and that you can actually get to self-actualization instead of making it hard on people.
Exactly.
And so that kind of covers that. And then having a plan, you mentioned having a plan for potential obstacles, I think is a really big one. So a lot of people, get motivated one day, call up a personal trainer, call up Lift Lab, be like, I'm going to do this. They got a sudden burst of motivation. And they came in, but they didn't really plan in their heads for maybe, you know, the stuff in their life that triggers them or gets them depressed or maybe gets in the way or, you know, all kinds of things that are likely to happen. And that some of that stuff maybe they could have thought about or prepared for ahead of time.
It's like when people book a schedule for like 20 minutes after work, but they know that they're often somebody that stays at work long. I've had that happen often where they're like, you know what, I'm not going to make it yet. I'm like, well, why don't we just bump it? You know, things like that you got to prepare for.
Know yourself, like it's yeah. So that's a really good one. Thinking about like what potentially might happen and how you're going to deal with it personally. And then, yeah, the action stage of the trans-theoretical model, I think is kind of, you mentioned there's kind of a high relapse right there. That's, I think, something we see as personal trainers a lot. Is people get in the action stage in the first like 6 months, and it's not like kind of, they haven't made it kind of an intrinsically motivated thing, and, you know, they let themselves fall off the wagon too easily. They make excuses, they're missing sessions here and there, and all of a sudden you're not seeing them anymore. Yeah, so that's something that's like, you know, as a personal trainer, you kind of have to like, work with people and try to like find ways to get them motivated or keep them seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Like this is the reward you're going to get. This is like how good you're going to feel, how much more of a competent person you're going to be if you do these things and you know, reach your goal.
I think that's why it's important to understand each stage, like not just look at it as like I'm preparing, like understanding where you are and where you fit in each one, because basically once you're here for a session, you're in action, right? Like you're in the action stage. You went through all of the first 3 or 4, and that's why, again, it's the higher relapse, because it seems a little bit, not to say easy, the beginning can actually be really difficult, but again, once you are here, that part could have zoomed by, and now it's actually applying and keeping that maintenance and sustainability.
Right. There's like a type of person who will jump from the pre-contemplation stage right to the action stage without having done any, like, and they'll just jump right in, and then 2 weeks later they're gone. They get super motivated. And, so yeah, that's definitely something to worry about. Yeah, I'm done.
I just wanted to say that I wasn't sure what I was going to take away today, and I showed up, and it was really great. Thank you. And
thank you.
So personally for me, like doing that quiz was great because it reiterates what one of the things I need to work on. Like
that's a high number, say
Flips it over.
You know, but I just want to say, this thing, like, we kind of know each other here, a few people, and like you mentioned Brenda, how you mentioned Brenda has like a lot of motivation and stuff like that, and I notice a lot of people have motivation. That's one of the things I need to work on. And so like I was gonna throw the question at you and say like, what does someone do if they have a low willpower, right? So
honestly, watch them. Like I'd be lying if I said I didn't struggle with myself, but making that intrinsic motivation.
Right, and I'm aware of it, but I think everything you mentioned was kind of like it all works together. So it's not like as simple as I need more willpower. It's like I need to recognize that I'm here on the chart, and I need to maybe pat the bottom of it, make sure know my limitations.
Yeah, set down some foundation. Yeah.
So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Is there anything else that stood out to anybody else? Takeaways, anything that you're like, oh, I hadn't thought about that?
Very well done.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you very much. And again, thank you all for being here. I appreciate it on a Saturday afternoon, taking your time. We're doing these monthly, and I think it's a good way for us to not only share it with you, but keep us on our toes as well. I mean, that's what Stephen mentioned to us, that, it keeps us having availability and kind of like what we talked about here, having resources and stuff for people to go to. So it's good for the community as well as good for us, because it keeps us researching and knowing how we can help our clients out as well as ourselves. Awesome. Well, thank you.